abounding in thanksgiving. See to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit, according to human traditions, according to the elemental spirits of the world, and not according to Christ. For in Him the whole fullness of deity dwells bodily, and you have been filled in Him, who is the head of all rule and authority. And it goes on and gives us much more information. Look with me. In Him also you were circumcised with a circumcision made without hands, by putting off the body of flesh by the circumcision of Christ, having been buried with Him in baptism, in which you were also raised with Him through faith in the powerful working of God, who raised Him from the dead. And you who were dead in your trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh, God made alive together with Him, having forgiven us all our trespasses, by canceling the record of debt. Everybody wants their debts canceled, don't they? I do. Canceling the record of debt that stood against us with its legal documents, He set aside, nailing it to the cross. He disarmed the rulers and authorities and put them to open shame by triumphing over them in Him. Now, we could spend weeks in this passage, and this is filled with all kinds of good stuff. But what I'm wanting you to do today is to look at the idea that I'm trying to communicate. And here's the idea. This is what I'm trying to say. So I'm just going to say it. That salvation is by faith, not faith plus works. That our assurance of salvation, we should be confident that we are saved. Not necessarily by the evidence of our faith working itself out in real time, although that is real faith, because faith is as faith does. But our confidence should not be in our works, but it should be in Jesus. And the reason is because who He is. Now, I know that our works will help us understand, and He tells us over there in 1 John that if we know Him, that we're going to do what He asked us to do, and that we're going to know that we are His by walking and being like Jesus. That should give you some assurance of salvation. But the real assurance that God's keeping you saved is not in your activity. Now, one of the favorite places to look and poke around in this is the thief on the cross. How many things did He do after He was saved to demonstrate His faith? I mean, can you give me a long list of great deeds He did? No, they killed Him. They broke His legs. And He suffocated on the cross. He did have faith, though. Now, the beginning of the parlay between the thieves and Jesus, both of them were against Jesus, but something happened to that one thief. Something happened about the way maybe that he saw that Jesus, who was being reviled, and you say, what's reviled mean? Reviled is hurling of insults on Him. How that rather than striking back or cursing, He took it, and not only took it, He said, Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. He could have called for legions and legions of angels to show up and Him taking Him down from the cross. But He didn't. He endured the torment, the shame for our sake. And in that moment, that thief, hanging up there, recognized that he was guilty. Not Jesus, but himself. That he was getting what he deserved. He knew that he was a sinner. He knew that he had failed to please God in his life. But here was someone who did please God. And although he was dying right along the side of it, in fact, Jesus was dying quicker. The reason is that Jesus was beaten so bad that He was dying before they ever nailed Him up there on that cross. He was dying from the cat o' nine tails whippings and beatings and all the blood loss that he had, to the point that he finally gave up the ghost, literally, and died. And when the Roman soldiers came to check and say, we're going to let these bodies not stay up here during Passover so the Jews are all happy, so we're going to break the legs. which is a merciful way of killing someone on a cross. You know that's merciful, right? You say, how is breaking somebody? So that's merciful. The other thing is you just let them hang up there, and most people last 2 or 3 days. If you can imagine drowning in your own chest for 3 days, and the only way to get any relief to exhale is to put pressure on a nail that's set against a nerve that would be excruciating. And finally, your body convulses in exhaustion, and you're no longer able to bear your weight to exhale, and you suffocate to death. Yes, it's more merciful to break their legs. They can't push up anymore, and they die. Jesus died before they ever come to break the legs. But this thief said to him, remember me when you come into your kingdom. I mean, he saw Jesus dying right in front of him. And yet, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. He was convinced that this person was the Christ. You say, how do you know that? Remember when we come into your kingdom? Well, you remember Christ is not a name. It's not like up at Nazareth with the Christ family. It's like, I need some woodworking done, a new bench made or a new picnic table. It's not like you'd say, oh, well, the Christ family are carpenters. You can go down there. Just check it out. They're 101 Appian Way. That's not a name. If there would have been a name, if they had last names, it might have been carpenter or worker or laborer or who knows what. Christ is a title. It means the anointed one. It's what you call the king. And so this thief on the cross who was putting his faith in Jesus recognized that Jesus was the king. I mean, come on, there's a sign over his head in 3 languages that says, this is Jesus, King of the Jews. Not that the sign is what convinced him, but he had enough faith to recognize that the kingdom of Jesus would continue and that he would be part of that if he could possibly be. And what did Jesus say? Do you remember?